Finally, what about David Aronovich, a great a man who's always hunting down conspiracy theories. He says this suggestion that there was anything other than a mistake behind the BBC showing pictures of a well-turned-out Boris Johnson laying a wreath rather than the rather scruffy individual we saw on Sunday. He just says, one of those things. It's not a conspiracy. What do you reckon?
What I love about David Aronovich is that every one of his columns is just a reflection of what's annoyed him on Twitter that week. So, you know, what I should start doing is atting him more often and seeing if I can make it in. I mean, look, regardless of whether or not this BBC thing was a mistake, and there's been a huge brouhaha all over social media with people working for the BBC saying, look, it was just an error, these things happen.
Rob Burley,
and other people saying,
boss.
well, look, it's actually quite difficult to pull up archive footage, la, 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 I think is irrelevant. I think what the conflict represents is a feeling that broadcasting is not as impartial as it ought to be. And I think that when we haven't been able to have that kind of conversation with any degree of honesty, when we haven't been able to have that conversation with any degree of honesty, people become more conspiratorially minded.
People who are conspiratorially minded, I'll give you that. Especially my favourite bit of this article is that the whole article slags off conspiracy theories, and at the end he goes, what if this is all conspiracy theory? Ultimately, the conspiracy theories are the conspiracy. But going back to the point, and I think leaving aside the daft wreath row, I mean, wreath rows in British politics have become a regular occurrence. The other thing that is important...
you think
of course it was a mistake, and, you know, and of course the Labour Party is led by a conspiracy theorist, someone who's pumped conspiracy theories his entire career. He can see the hand of Israel in every terror attack across this way. There's a guy who goes on... Yes, he has, on Press TV. Go back and look at it. Go back and look at it. This is a Labour Party that, you know, has a fairly standard denial of service attack on their system, as any big organisation does, and suddenly it's the Russians and it's all a conspiracy. And this isn't, you know, Novara Media and, you know, the cheerleaders in the WhatsApp groups pumping this stuff out on Twitter. This is Jenny Formby, the General Secretary of the Labour Party, suggesting that they're under some sort of coordinated foreign attack. And you just think, if the people in charge of the Labour Party are willing to pump out this utter nonsense, you know, God, heaven forbid, you know, God help us for what the actual cheerleaders and supporters on the ground are going to be doing if the people actually at the centre running the party are willing to be so daft.
I mean, look, I thought that the denial of service idea that it was a sophisticated cyber attack was always a bit dodgy because Novara comes under them all the time. But it is the case that denial of service attacks can be coordinated from foreign countries.
Sure, and as a national security centre, they can be done by children.
The majority of them have come, in the Labour Party's case, from Russia and Brazil. The word sophisticated was doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's not a sophisticated form of technology. But it is the case that the majority of these attacks come from...
So do you think Putin is trying to destabilise Jeremy Corbyn?
I don't think
the guy who's literally, you know, pumping out his talking points about NATO.
Right. Do you think that socialism is the same as Putin's ideology?
Thank you both very much indeed. Feel free to continue discussing
we were.
conspiracy